other poets who have a cat-like case. Here we go. I'm going to share screen. And there we go. It's called The Mexican Mouse. The Mexican mouse visited my house. He told tall tales as far as he could stretch. You know what he said would happen next? He dared all the poets, the girls, and the boys to gather their verbs, their nouns, and such toys, to construct an elaborate structure of whimsy, to climb up on its roof and then slide down its tiny brick chimney. He found some cheese that made him quite pleased. He marched right up to it, up to his knees. He found cottage, mozzarella, and parmesan. It reminded him of the farm when he was little that he'd grow up on. He found a tiny horsey, hidden, you see, hidden lying deep in the straw so as not to give himself away. But this little charger was just the right size for our friend the Mexican mouse to saddle and ride. He rode around the kitchen searching this way, that way. His tiny steed was lurching. Despite its tiny size, there was no great leap. He wouldn't from floor to kitchen counter in one great leap, then up to the cabinets to the very tippy top peak. From there he could survey the kitchen complete, the knife rack, the double sink, the fruit juicer. He might even climb down to it, but he'd never be a user. The first plan he hatched was to pry open the freezer. He had an idea would get off this ledge. He would slide to the handle and check for a release. He had designs on that Samsung that hid all the cheese. He would pry open the suction fit lock. He rummaged through his memory, but it seemed he was stuck. He noticed a can of WD-40 and suddenly thought of his sweet cousin Morty. Morty loved to disassemble locks. He knew every trick from the bottom to the tops. He used the straw nozzle, that lubricating spray, and whatever came out extra, he'd use with his skates. He pushed and he shoved that tiny straw went in, and he squirted that lubricant for a day and a night. It might have been longer, he never could say. It bubbled, it tumbled, it rolled down the seams, till little by little, till the mouse got his dreams. The fridge door swung open, it caught him by surprise, but he blinked and he burbled when he saw what was inside. He found a strand of I think for spaghetti, just as it was ready. He looped in a spinning lariat and gauged how high he'd have to toss it yet. He spotted a dangler off the sides of the cheese plate, decided as an anchor it might work out just great. He tossed his loop and snagged some celery, which seemed at first downright neighborly. And as the Mexican mouse climbed the sticky noodle, he thought he spotted some Austrian strudel. He glanced round the savory favors and wondered how best to summon the neighbors. He pushed the cheese plate over the edge, making sure that the plate caught at least just a smidge. It spun in the air, landed right on its bottom. The cheese slices flew off, and each neighbor grabbed on them. And another drop of mustard landed on our hero, which raised his profile way high above zero. It seems the old family cat had seen enough of that. Young Mr. Fritz, the family cat, liked his mice deep in mustard, whether yellow, spicy, or pale as custard. Our dear mousy hero, high atop the plate of cheese, directing disbursement according to the needs, stood tall and hungry as another drop of mustard began to fall. His attention remained on the cheesiest plate, after all. He just waved off the warning of his old friend Nate, who was steadily watching the cat in a very nervous state. The plate, once so stable, had become something or other. Then it tumbled down in a noisy clatter, nattering. But what was the example? What was the mattering? What could he say? Cheese on the floor had cluttered and fluttered each and every way. The perched cat, who'd been watching through all that, licked his lips at the tiny mousies below and their cheesy tails and toes. He jumped at the clutter, leapt in the air. He was scared. He got snared. The lacy curtains at the window tangled the fumbling, tumbling kitty in a sight that wasn't pretty. The panicked cat was tangled and dangled high above a sinkful of dishes, deep in soapy water, bubbled and was stuck like a fish in a net. Unless he gets free and had some luck, we'll see. He might just splash in the sink and get sunk or plunk. The Mexican mouse saw that tangled up cat and the predicament he was in and where he was at, so he called those immigrant neighbors away from their labors, the voles from Venezuela, the Honduran kangaroo rats, some agoutis from the Amazon who still had their Guayaberas on, some Cotamundi from who had just arrived last Sunday, the capybara from Colombia, and a pack of rainforest rodents from Panama, but you know that. Some degus from Uruguay insisted they wanted to help. It was just their way. A couple of Patagonian maras, 3, oddly enough, named Sarah. Some nutria rats from Guyana, fresh from the sauna, Pacaranas from Chile, and ready gathered were willing once they'd finished their bananas. The mouse and the rodent came out of the hat. They climbed the curtain up to where the cat sat. He suspended precarious above the suds in the sink. They just couldn't leave him struggling there. What would he think? They tangled, and all freed this one tabby. It was like some lawyer had cornered the closet, and they were all written so shabby, stuck there in boxes. The cat seemed to object. They were all from down where? They all came to free him, this precarious, perilous snare. They traveled so far to rescue this cat from his dubious, precarious cradle. He couldn't get out. He was tangled. He mangled. He just wasn't able. He untangled his claws, but he still tried to snag him. He swiped and he swallowed, just couldn't bag him. He reached for those mice, not from fear, but from malice. He hoped to put 'em away in his sharp, toothy palace. You're not even American rodents, not a single one. So why would you help me? What have I done? You're a stuck cat in trouble. We just didn't want you to drop unless we helped you, your struggles wouldn't stop. Well, I'll go ahead and stop there. After all, it's been 5 minutes. So thanks a lot. Next time you hear the rest. Thanks again, friends.
Thanks a million, Rick. Oh my word, what a marvelous wonder. I'm still marveling in retrospect. The Mexican mouse. Well, Mexican mouse visited my house. He told tall tales as far as he could stretch. You know what he said would happen next? It's just absolute wonder. I love it. And let's just quote a couple more lines. Um, he found a tiny horsey hidden, you say, lying deep in the straw so as not to give himself away. How wonderful. And as Therese said, for adults as well as children, the language and the wisdom hidden, you say, is so cute, but you have such a great story all will enjoy, from the floor to the kitchen counter in one great leap, then up to the cabinet to the very tippy top peak. Ah, wow. It reminds me of Butter the cat, my story that I got so discouraged about because it got rejected 3 times. Um, anyhow, I love it. Thank you. We both thank you. Let me just stop the recording. I'm actually awake enough to remember to